Yes, sir. That's some sweet music. That music means that the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark are back for another year. My partner is the ex-Eagles beat writer for Trenton Times and NJ.com, Mark Eckel. Mark, good to see you. He's the good-looking guy on the left. I don't know who the old guy is on the right. I think Joe must have switched our picture around here from Sweet Recording Studios. But Mark, it's good to see you. We've been through a lot this offseason, and the Eagles are back for another year. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And
You're looking
I got to
good.
say, I'm not up there anymore. As you know, I live in South Carolina now, Myrtle Beach. But I got to say, Philadelphia, I'm never surprised by anything. But Eagle fans are the best. They really, I mean, I miss them because they're the only fans I know that get upset after wins. A win's a win, you know? I
I
mean,
agree.
it's hard to win. You played the games. You know it's hard to win, especially on the
Listen,
road.
Jalen Hurts had a quote last year that said, either you win or you learn. Well, the Eagles actually did both
Exactly.
on Sunday, right? It's good to learn while you win. And obviously, we're going to talk about a lot of the mistakes and the
Yes.
miscues and
Yes.
most of it. And before I get into the crux of our podcast here, let me remind everybody that this podcast is sponsored by Jersey Man and Philly Man magazine. Mark, we've got a legacy club. We've got 200 plus members. We had over 200 people at our Wells Fargo event a couple weeks ago. We've got one coming up at Parks Casino, and Live Casino is going to host an event later this year. It's great for your business. If you want to attend one of these guests as one of these events as my guest, please contact me, Ken at jerseymanmagazine.com, and we'll send you a free invite. You can come rub elbows with some pretty important business people. And for more information, you go to jerseymanmagazine.com. So, Mark, let's talk a little bit because our podcast was truncated last year because of my health situation. You had gone through a bypass procedure a couple months earlier than that. I actually had one a couple days before the Super Bowl.
We were going to change the name to the Bypass Brothers.
The Bypass Brothers. I think that's got a good ring to it. But and actually, I got home from the hospital the day before the Super Bowl. And my doctor said, listen, I'm going to send you home as long as you watch the Super Bowl and don't get excited. I said, well, we need a lopsided Eagles win, which was exactly the opposite. I was jumping off of my chair, but luckily I survived. So we weren't able to recap the Super Bowl because of my health situation. Obviously, the Eagles lost a tough game, and now we're on to 2023. A lot of changes up and down the depth chart, and we've got some injuries to talk about. But let's talk about this Eagles performance on Sunday. And I think you and I are in agreement that as I go back in time to my day, we played 4 preseason games. We were in camp for 3 weeks before the preseason game started. Every starter played every minute of every practice, full contact, tackle to the ground. Nobody got hurt. They played almost every minute of every preseason game, obviously live contact in the game. Nobody got hurt. Now, in today's football, apparently the teams feel like they have such an investment in some of these players, they don't want to risk injury. What happens, though, is you get players that are not sharp trying to debut in their opening game. And I think Jalen Hurts, who obviously had a tremendous season last year, just showed some rust, as anybody would do, by not playing the game at full speed for such a long time.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And injuries are going to hey, listen, Aaron Rodgers is out for the year with a torn Achilles.
Yeah.
It happens. I mean, that's the all-time crazy. I mean, if you're a Jets fan, you're jumping off
that is cruel, unusual punishment. I'll tell you, those people were so excited. 4 plays in, they lose their guy. Oh,
I mean, didn't even complete a pass. But
I can relate as a Cubs fan, so I'm used to that kind of stuff.
There you go. But I mean, injuries are going to happen, whether they happen first game, 10th game, 16th game. It's a violent game. You're going to, you do all you can to prevent them, but at what cost? And the Eagles won the game, and that's all that matters. By the end of the year, you're not going to look. This isn't college football where you got to win convincingly to get votes for the BCS, all that kind of stuff. You just get wins. This is a win. They won. New England lost. That's bottom line. But I fully expect it, not just because of what happened in preseason. And this is why I may have played, if I was Nick Sirianni, I may have played my players a little more in preseason because, like you said, there's a lot of changes on this. This team that went to the Super Bowl is not the same team that played New England opening week.
No, it is not.
Let's start with the two. They have two new coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
That's rare in this league to have two new. I think the last time I looked it up, I think the last time without firing the whole staff. When I mean, obviously, when the head coach gets fired, with the same head coach with two new coordinators. The last time I think that happened was San Francisco in '95 when the Eagles actually hired Ray Rhodes, and I believe Denver hired Mike Shanahan. I believe
Mm-hmm.
they were the two coordinators. But anyway, so it's that's change right there. They have a new defensive coordinator. Now they're
Sean
keeping
Desai from
right,
Seattle. Yeah.
taking
And
over
Brian
for
Johnson, who's a longtime friend of Jalen Hurts, has known him since he was a little boy,
but
is
he's
the
never
offensive coordinator.
right, and he's I mean, but they both have new roles.
And
So
and
that's
Johnson's never called plays in an NFL
exactly
game before. Yeah.
exactly. So that's different. The defense, I believe they have 5 or 6 new starters on defense, right? Both safeties, the linebackers. So that's different. Offense, a couple different. The running backs a little, well, Gainwell's still there, but I mean, he wasn't Miles Sanders was your number one guy. He's gone. A new guard, Jurgen's taken over for
Mm-hmm.
Samalo, right?
Samalu, yeah.
So I mean, the offense not quite as different, but the defense is totally different with a new coordinator. So I expected the Eagles to start slowly, um, and they did, but they got the win. They were outplayed, outgained, out everything, but they found a way. Darius Slay makes a big play, pick six. Well, the New England guy kind of dropped it, but anyway, he made the play, brought it back. They thank God they have a pretty good kicker too, and that didn't change because that 50-some-yard field goal was a big difference in the game.
Yeah, that was big for sure. Just take a look at the stats briefly. Jalen Hurts, a very pedestrian day, 22 for 33, 170 yards and 1 touchdown, as opposed to Mac Jones, 35 for 54, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. The interception was a little bit unlucky because it came on a deflected ball that Darius Slay returned for a pick six early, which may have been the biggest play in the game. But we talked about Hurts looking rusty. The Eagles really never got a ground game established. Kenneth Gainwell, 14 carries, 54 yards, was their leading rusher. A.J. Brown had a pretty good day, 7 receptions for 79 yards. But as is usually the case when an offense really isn't clicking on all, and I got to tell you, I was at training camp practice. I don't know how they get their timing down because everything is as a bump. It's a pillow fight. There's no really live, even receivers and cornerbacks playing 7-on-7. They're not playing bump and run. They're really not trying to hold up the receiver at the line. It's really not representative of what happens in a game. So the fact that the Eagles struggled, especially on offense, really didn't surprise me. And most of the league struggled because a lot of those early games were under totals because teams aren't just ready to play at full speed.
And like I said, a lot of it goes back to preseason and what if I think I'm going to look this up, but just off the top of my head, I know the teams that played their guys a little bit more in preseason this year. Another team that I follow closely, the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
They played. Jordan Love played a lot of preseason because
but he needs to play. I mean,
and he did.
He's taken over and he played, and
Right, and he played in, and not just he didn't. It wasn't just him with backups. He played with his offensive line, except for David Bakhtiari, who they're resting
mm-hmm.
because of his knee, and his receivers. Well, he went out and put up 30, 38, 31 points. They scored 38, but 7 was on defense. But he played a good game and put up numbers against the Bears. I mean, and I'm sure, and there's other examples. I think, did San Francisco, did Purdy play in preseason? I don't know. He was coming off the injury.
Very little because he was coming off the injury.
Right. But again, and it's a long season. It's a long season. What I mean, I put a thing up online this morning that what kind of odds would I have gotten that Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo would have all lost straight up
Pretty good.
week, right? I mean, come on,
That's a nice 3-team parlay on
yeah. If you took
DraftKings.
the other three, right? I mean, more take the money line on all three would have been
Yeah.
a heck of a payout. But again, and they're probably, I mean, going in, everybody thought they were the top three teams in a loaded AFC, and all three lost. So the first week, it's the first week. But like I said, the Eagles found a way to play poorly by their standards and still come away with a win. So that's, to me, that's impressive. When you don't play your best game. Dallas played its best game the other night and beat the Giants by 40. That was impressive. But to me, it's just as impressive to win when you don't play well.
Do you think Sirianni has the autonomy to go into Jeff and Howie and say, listen, Hurts is my guy. I want him to be ready. I want to play him, a full preseason game. You think they would say, go ahead and do what you want? Or do you think they'd say, wait a minute, we just sunk $250 million into this guy? No, seriously, it's a conversation that I assume is going to happen.
I think there's a middle ground. I think they compromise. You don't play him the whole game because like Love didn't play the whole game, but you play him. There's 3 preseason games. Now you play him a quarter the first game, maybe a little more than maybe almost a half in the second, and if you want to sit him out the third one, that I'm not. I have no problem with that. I mean, I don't go back to when you played with Ramil. That was, I don't remember those days. I was in school, but I mean I remember watching.
I try to erase them from my mind myself.
Well, you had some success though. But I was there for the Buddy Ryan, Ray Rhodes, Rich Coe, all those years, and even early Andy Reid. Players played preseason. Yeah. They didn't play the whole game, but they played. It was 4 games. The first game, you played about a quarter, depending on how it went. Mm-hmm. If you didn't if you went 3 and out, you might go back out again just to get something going, or vice versa. If the offense went out and put together a 15-play, 80-yard touchdown drive, then take the rest of the night off. But they played, and then the second or third games you played more. I remember. I don't know if you remember this story. Randall Cunningham, during the Randall Cunningham years, he was invited to Whitney Houston's birthday party, and it was the night of a preseason game, and he had to get Buddy Ryan's permission. Him and a couple of guys, I think Keith Jackson, Keith Byers, I forget. There was like 3 of them that were invited to this Whitney Houston birthday party, and Buddy let him leave. He said, all right, you play the first half, halftime, get dressed, you can leave. Now the player they wouldn't even have to ask. They wouldn't even go to the games, do they?
I mean, Dick Vermeil would have short circuited if we went to ask him if we wanted to go to a birthday party instead of playing the second. So I want
now do the players even go to the preseason games?
Oh yeah, they're there. They're even the ones that aren't playing. Are
they on the sidelines or
they're on the sideline? They're on the sideline. They're on the sideline. I saw that. So I got some concerns. I think the Eagles' offense will eventually rectify itself. Number one, it's the best offensive line in the league. Number two, they've got the skill position players to make it happen. And I think they have got a really good quarterback that's going to continue to improve this year. Defensively,
are you worried about Johnson at all? Are you worried at all about the new play caller?
Again, I can't make a judgment on this last game.
No, I'm not basing off that. Just the fact that he's new and he's never. I'm surprised Sirianni didn't take the play calling back.
Well, apparently that's a vote of confidence for a new guy, and we'll see. Listen, if it goes sideways, Sirianni can always take that responsibility back. But I applaud the fact that he's given this guy a chance. But so defensively, I've got some concerns. Number one, defensive line is good. I thought they had an effective pass rush, not blitzing very much, which I understand. But my concern is exactly like the Super Bowl last year. Travis Kelce had the entire middle of the field open to roam. And it looked like Belichick had a pretty good plan because once they weathered that initial pass rush, the linebackers and safeties, they just weren't tight enough on coverage, and the middle of the field was wide open. And the Eagles now have some injury concerns. And Nakobe Dean, their starting middle linebacker, is going to be out for a couple weeks with a foot injury. They're going to replace him with a guy by the name of Nicholas Morrow, who's a practice squad player. Comes from a very small school. I think it's Greenville College. He's only 6 foot 216 as a middle linebacker in the NFL. that's going to be challenging to overcome. Of course, they lost Sean Bradley in the preseason to injury, so he's out for the year. James Bradbury, their slot corner now, is out with a concussion. They're not sure he's going to play this week. And it looks like Gainwell, Fletcher Cox, and Reed Blankenship all have rib injuries, but they're expected to play. Keep in mind, this is a short week. They got to tee it up again on Thursday against a Minnesota team who's not going to be in a very good mood after losing their home opener to Tampa Bay last week.
Yeah, but the Bradbury thing's going to hurt a little bit because the Vikings do. I don't think the Vikings are very good, but they do have two very good, they have a great wide receiver in Justin Jefferson, and then the kid they drafted, Jordan Addison out of Southern Cal's not bad either. So, the Eagles need some help at corner, and Bradbury's not. If he has a concussion, there's no way he's playing on Thursday. I mean, the way the league takes, they don't let guys play on Sunday sometimes, so there's no way he's playing on a Thursday night if he had a concussion. Eagles linebackers, you and I, this has been since we've been doing the show for a couple of years now. This has been something that comes up every year.
Yeah,
they still don't seem to care much about that position, and I don't understand why. Because if you go back in Eagle history, they've had some of the greatest linebackers to ever played a game.
Sure.
Let's go back to Chuck Bednarik. I mean, we'll start there.
Bill Berge, yeah.
Seth Joyner,
yeah.
Jeremiah Trotter.
Yeah.
It seems like they've always had a great, not anymore.
Which, we've talked about this before.
Did you say this guy was 216 pounds?
216 pounds. That's not even a strong safety.
I was going to say that's a small safety.
Yeah. So that's going to be a concern. But, I do believe that, scheme wise, that there's ways to overcome it. But the bottom line is, in today's football, especially with the advent of the tight end splitting out into more of a wide receiver position, that you've got to have a guy that can cover a tight end in the middle of the field. And right now, from what I see, that's a concern. Can they scheme it to cover that
tight end also?
They do.
I didn't mention it. They have the T.J. Hawkinson,
right?
Who they traded for last year
from Detroit,
and just paid him a ton of money to be their guy. So I would expect the Vikings to. That's where they're going to go to him a lot as well. This is going to be. Again, I don't think the Vikings. I think their defense is shaky. Their offensive line isn't very good, and that could bode well for the Eagles' pass rush, which is still pretty good. I mean, you still got Reddick and Sweat,
and Kirk Cousins is not the most mobile guy back there, so we should be able to get him on the ground a little bit.
But I mean, there'll be some quick throws. I'm thinking to the tight end over the middle, right?
Yeah, and the Vikings let go of Dalvin Cook, which it's interesting. These teams that are giving up. Like the Colts giving up on Jonathan Taylor, their starting running back. The Vikings not wanting to pay their guy. It's certainly from a running back standpoint, it's got to be frustrating to be at the top of your class and getting these. Not that $10 million a year is measly money, but I mean compared to what some of these other guys are getting, it just seems a little bit unfair to me. But Ezekiel Elliott's a good example, right? Now, is he toast? He didn't look good in that game. He had 7 carries for 29 yards. He fumbled the ball. Maybe they're looking for younger guys at value versus these, established players who may not have enough left in their tank, because it is a punishing position.
That's what's happening, and there's no reason to pay a lot of money for a guy to carry 7 times for 29 yards. I mean, I'm not saying he can't play anymore. He can play at that role, but you're not going to pay him. You'll pay him a couple $1 million instead of, the big money.
Yeah.
I think the Giants made a mistake with Saquon Barkley. I mean, they gave him some money, but they didn't give him what he wanted, but he still got a lot. And how much of a factor was he the other night? Not much. I mean,
well, they got behind so far they had to throw it.
Right. Well, it's kind of a shame the way the game has become. You don't win running the ball anymore. I mean, you have to run a little bit, but if you don't have a quarterback in this league now, you're the Jets. I mean, you're not going to win many games without.
It's a good thing the Jets had Breece Hall last night.
Yeah. And a punt returner, and good thing they had Josh Allen playing against him, turning the ball over 4 times.
Yeah, what was up with him last night?
That was
A
not a good
quarterback's
defense
supposed to
on the ball.
protect the football. He's out there looking like Brett Favre, trying to wing it
That's
around,
the
and
bad Brett Favre. He didn't have
yeah,
the good Brett Favre, but he had the bad. Yeah,
yeah,
3 picks and a fumble. That was awful.
that was
But you but
shocking.
but you have to win with. I mean, to win in the NFL today, I mean, you need. And the Eagles are lucky, or not lucky. They have the quarterback. Jalen Hurts is one of the best in the league, even though
Mhm.
coming off a rusty performance, but he's still one of the best in the league.
So we've got Minnesota on a short week as we take a look at the upcoming schedule. Um, we've got Tampa Bay next week. Everybody kind of penciled that in as a win, but they beat a Minnesota Vikings team on the road, and
That Monday night.
it is a Monday night. Yeah. Now I'm drawing a blank on the kid from Baker Mayfield is
Yeah.
their quarterback now. He looked pretty good.
He didn't. He's got talent.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Well, he was the number one pick in the draft. I
right.
mean, you would think he'd have some talent. And then the following week, the Eagles host the Washington Commanders, who new improved version of the Commanders. They've got a new owner. They've got Eric Bieniemy now running the offense, which I think will help them. They love this kid Sam Howell, a quarterback, and I think overall, the Giants thing is an anomaly. Vermeil used to say this: "You're never as good as you think you look on film, and you're never as bad." And that's the case. The Giants are going to look at that film, and sometimes you just, everything snowballs and happens occasionally by chance, and you got to slough that off and consider it a new day. I think overall, the NFC East is a much better conference than it was last year. Going to be more challenging for the Eagles to win it.
Yeah, I think Dallas is good now. I don't know if they're 40-0, like you said.
They're not.
You're never as
They're
bad,
not.
you're never as good. But they're good. They added something. They were good last year. They made the playoffs. They won some games. They won a playoff game. Then they went to San Francisco and played pretty well, but lost. It was a good game. Um, and they added some people. They added Cooks to the offense at wide receiver, and they added Gilmore to their defense. So they added 2 good players. Plus, they drafted some. They drafted like everybody. They added some rookies that they like. So no, Dallas isn't going away. That's gonna be a good challenge. The Giants, I don't think they'll be. They're not. Again, they're not as bad as they played against Dallas, but I don't think that they're a playoff team like they were last year. I think they kind of snuck up on people last year. They got off to a great start last year. They were the surprise of the league early. Then they kind of stumbled home a little bit. Then they beat the Vikings in the playoffs, but I think the Vikings were kind of a fraud too.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they're not terrible. The Giants aren't bad, but I don't know if they're a playoff team. Washington's going to be interesting because with the new ownership, and let's be honest, I don't think anybody liked the old ownership, including the players, the coaches. It was
not
just
one person I ever heard of.
Yeah, I never heard anybody say, "Hey, that Dan Snyder."
He's a great guy.
Never heard that. So, I think there's just a sigh of relief in Washington. I think there's, it's just they feel better about themselves now with the new owner. Now, again, talent wise, they got a defense. Washington plays defense now. They got some people up
Hey,
front.
they beat the Eagles at home last year.
Yes, they did. Ron Rivera is a good defensive coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Bieniemy's he's gonna. Guess he's, now he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes, so that makes it a little doesn't make it quite as easy for him. But like you said, they like Sam Howell. I'm not sure I do, but we'll see. They have some people though. I love Terry McLaurin, their wide receiver.
Did you like the report out of Washington when Bieniemy took over and the players said that he was coaching them too hard? That was hysterical.
Yeah, I didn't like that. That doesn't go over well with me. Like I said, they have a good defense.
Mommy, the coach is yelling at me. Come on, man. This is the NFL.
I was a high school athletic director for a few years.
Yeah, I know you were.
That's the kind of stuff you hear, and I had to tell parents,
Yeah.
Where my coach wants to win. Okay, that's if we win. If we lose and he's doing that, then come talk to me. As long as we're winning and he's not doing anything. He's not beating your kid or something or making him do something crazy.
What a world.
Okay.
What a world.
You have to work hard. Working hard is part of
exactly. And being criticized.
And all, not just sports, anything.
Being criticized is part of getting better. If everything is happy, joy all the time, you never improve.
Cookies and milk, I used to call it.
And then after the Commanders game, the Eagles traveled to the Rams, which looked like an easy win at the beginning of the season. But Matthew Stafford, they went up there and punched Seattle in the face the other day.
That was one of the shocking.
And again, 2 years ago, this was a Super Bowl team. so you can't look past them. And then, they're going to have the Jets now without Aaron Rodgers. But as the Jets showed last night, when you can run the ball and you can play defense, you can win any football game.
Be in the game.
It's
that's the Eagles have never lost to the Jets.
I did not know that. No,
never. I think they're like 12.
Really, 12-0. Well, that's a good
They've never lost.
Yeah,
pretty amazing. I think there's only like two teams like that. I forget the other one. I think it's somebody in the Colts, I believe. But they've never lost.
But listen, Mark, we're going to do these recaps on most every week. Again, for everybody that follows us, I'm going to Europe for a couple weeks. We're going to take a couple weeks off. We will be back on October 2nd or 3rd talking about the Commanders-Eagles game, and we'll recap the two games that we've missed. And, of course, we thank Joe Gajemi here at Sweet Recording for the great job in the studio. Getting Mark and I on camera, I think, is a minor or major achievement, whichever way you want to look at it. Joe did a good job of patching it all together for us. And if you need a podcast or looking to do something, Sweet Recordings here in Mount Laurel is a great way to do it. But Mark, great being with you. Thanks very much for a nice report. I look forward to doing this all season long. And for my partner, Mark Eckel, my name's Ken Dunek. I will see you on the other side of Italy in a couple weeks. Have a great day, everybody, and go Birds.